The Orphans of Simitra. Chapter 17. News at last. Dear Zines, if I tell you that I'm sitting in the shade of an olive tree, and that in the distance I can just about see a mountain, with snow still white on its summit, showing against the deep blue sky, you will think I'm writing this from Greece, that the olive tree is in Epirus, and the mountain part of the Pindarn chain. However, I'm still in France, and France is such a huge country. The province I'm living in now is so like our own land that sometimes, when I go for a walk, I almost expect to meet you. But I don't often go for walks, Siamese, for I'm working, yes, in the garage, or rather in a filling station, on a main road of a kind that doesn't exist in Greece. Do you remember my telling you, in the home at Lycyra, about my wonderful red uniform, and how you teased me? Well, I've got that uniform, only it's not red but blue, because France is a country where everyone is very fond of blue. The uniform has a crest with a wonderful seashell embroidered on it. And I sell gas all day long. Oh, Siamese, if only you could see the traffic on his road, it's incredible. I'm with very nice people. To tell you the truth, I found them one night quite by accident, just like a melon in a field of lentils, as we say back home. I'll tell you about that later. They have no children, or rather, only a daughter who is just married and gone abroad. They treat me just as if I were their own son. And can't you imagine what the place is called? You'd never guess. The Emperor's filling station. No, it's not a joke. An emperor really did stop here, and I'm sleeping in the bed he slept in. Madame Barbadou told me the story. 2 years ago, the Negus, the Negro emperor, one from Ethiopia, had an accident on this main road, and stopped here with his retinue. After he had enjoyed one of Madame Barbadou's wonderful omelets stuffed with olives and traffics, he spent the night here. But you know, Siamese, I don't only serve gas. I'm learning how to do repairs as well. I know all the grease paints of French cars now and foreign ones as well. I use a machine rather like a gun, which goes PCH-30. PCH-30, it's a lot of fun. And of course I know how to take the tire off and mend it. Monsieur Barbadou says I'm a tremendous help to him, and he's promised to keep me for good. He's even written to Greece and Holland so that there won't be any trouble with the home at Lycyra, and I can have permission to stay. Later, when I'm grown up, I'd very much like to drive a heavy truck. It's a wonderful job. You have to be strong and full of courage, but I will be. Here Porphyros stopped writing. He scanned the countryside as if he were seeking something, bent his head, and picked up his fountain pen again. Dear Zines, you would probably think that I was entirely happy, since I like my job so much, and laugh and sing while I am working. But Mina has not yet been found. It's 5 months now since she disappeared. Whenever I talk about her, Monsieur and Madame Barbadou look anxious, and try to make me believe that there is no more hope that she will come back, but I can't believe it. Dear Mina, she would be so happy in this land so like your own. Write to me often, Siamese. I shall never forget you, or Pete and Joanna. I've journeyed through many lands, crossed many frontiers, but for all that it's a very small world, and we shall see each other again one day. Your Porphyros. He rapidly glanced through the 2 pages from an exercise book that he had covered with his swift and spidery writing. He was afraid of having left spelling mistakes he so rarely wrote in Greek these days. He was just sealing the envelope when he heard someone calling in the distance. Well, Porphyros, have you so much to say you've forgotten it's dinner time? He walked away from the olive tree that had sheltered him from the sun and came back to the cafe. The proprietor's table, just by the door leading into the kitchen, was already set. I'm sorry, Porphyros said, ashamed of being late. He sat down facing Toin Barbadou, who was reading a newspaper. They always had their meal early, so as to be ready for their customers, who came in at intervals well into the afternoon. Porphyros remained downcast. The final paragraph of his letter had brought back to many memories. Monsieur Barbadou put his newspaper aside and said, this afternoon, Porphyros, you'll be the boss. I've got to be away. You'll handle the gas and oil on your own, and if anyone wants a lubrication or a tank drained, you could cope with it, couldn't you? Of course, Monsieur Barbadou, don't you worry, and I won't make mistakes over giving change, like I did the other day. The prospect of playing boss dispelled his sadness. "That's my Porphyros," said Toe in Barbadook. "I know I could rely on you. You do the man's work already. Anyone can see you're in your element. I believe you like the smell of gas more than any other, as much as the smell of rosemary, Monsieur Barbadook. It's lucky for me, especially since those new placards on each side of the station are bringing in new customers. It's not every filling station that can offer service in Dutch and Greek. Of course, Greek cars are rare, but from the Netherlands, well, I counted them, and we had 27 in last week, and all thanks to you." Porphyros smiled, very proud, and, above all, glad that he was really useful, for it was abundantly clear that Toe in Barbadook was satisfied with his work. Throughout the afternoon he worked without ever slackening his efforts. Now that summer was just beginning, the traffic on the road increased every day. He scurried to and fro between the workshop and the gasoline pumps, while Meat Barbadook came and went in the kitchen and cafe. As always, he whistled or sang at the top of his voice while he worked. Sometimes, however, particularly when he was singing the Greek melody like his favorite one, "Beneath the Pure Skies of Samos," he would suddenly stop. "If only Mina were here," he would say to himself. Then he would rub his forehead with the back of his hand as though to disperse a cloud before his eyes, and start on a Dutch or French song. He was in the garage, and was just mending a puncture which made him think of the nails he had put on the cedar slope, when another car drew up in front of a pump, sounding its horn in swift staccato to show that it was a hurry. Porphyros was just putting down his tire lever so that he could go and refuel the car when Meat Barbadook called to him, "Don't bother, I'll go." He went back to his work, but, as he lifted his head to draw breath, for the tire was difficult to remove, he thought he recognized the profile of the driver, who, having paid for the gasoline, was climbing into his car. He started, dropped his tools, and ran out to him. "Monsieur, monsieur." The driver was revving up his engine to get going again, and heard nothing. Porphyros ran after the car and jumped on the back bumper, gripping the spare wheel as best he could. "Heavens!" cried Meat Barbadook. "He'll kill himself." The car beneath the plane trees was getting up speed. "Stop! Stop!" yelled Porphyros. He might have saved his breath, for the driver could not hear him. But at last he was very much taken aback to see a wild head, disheveled and grimacing, reflected in his driving mirror. The car braked suddenly and stopped with a screeching of tires. Furious, the driver jumped out of the car, intending to give the lunatic handing on behind a good hauling out. "Oh, sir!" Porphyros cried out. "Don't you remember me?" Dropping a threatening arm, the man surveyed the young garage hand in blue overalls from head to foot, and shook his head. "Don't you remember, sir," the boy went on, "last year in Holland, when you were camping near a farm?" The man thought back, and suddenly his face cleared. "Porphyros, you're Porphyros. How on earth did you expect me to recognize you? You've grown so much. But what are you doing here, so far away from Holland, and from your own land?" Porphyros pointed to his blue uniform. "I'm working at the Emperor's filling station. I was mending a puncture. I recognized you immediately. I've thought about you so often." Then, handing his head almost as if he were ashamed, "It's partly to find you again that I came to Provence." "To find me again? Now, you had a sister, hadn't you? If I remember rightly, she was called Mina. My daughter went on talking about her for ages. They got along very well together." Porphyros turned his head away. He found it difficult to hold back his tears. The man drew near, and put a hand affectionately on his shoulders. "I'm sorry to be so clumsy. I didn't know that." The boy raised his head quickly. "Oh no, she's not dead. She disappeared, but she's not dead. She'll come back." To further questions he replied in short, disjointed phrases, sick at heart. They were standing by the roadside, beneath the plane trees, and near the car, the engine of which was still running. "Porphyros," said the camper from Holland, "I'm terribly sorry I can't take you home with me today. My wife and Anne-Marie would be delighted to see you, but I've far too many things to do. Still, we live fairly near, in Avignon." "Avignon," repeated Porphyros. "That lovely town surrounded by high white walls. Come over to see us as soon as you can. Tell us all about Mina, and if I can be of any help to you, here's the address. If anything urgent crops up, Write to us at once and Emmanuel, 17, Rue de Marchaux Herbes. Our house is close to the ramparts, and near the river Rhone, too. But look here, you're miles away from your garage. I'm not so pressed for time that I can't take you back. Oh no, Porphyros protested. My legs are strong. Monsieur Manuel shook hands with him, got into his car again, and drove off at full speed. After watching the car till it was out of sight, Porphyros looked at the address on the little white card. As he did so, a feeling of despair came over him. He realized that, without being fully aware of it, he had put his last hope in this man. He had let himself believe that somehow Mina had tracked down these French people and would be found in their house. No, he said to himself. I won't go to Avignon. It would be awful to hear them talking about Mina as if she were there with us. He began to run along the road, eager to get back to the filling station and forget his bitter disappointment. The days went by. Summer had come. Now the plane trees lifted their luxuriant green arch above the highway. The first grasshoppers clashed their strident cymbals in the clear air. It's finished and done with, Porphyros thought. I shall never know now. It's been too long. One morning, however, he was shaken when he received a letter from Holland. He recognized the stamp with the portrait of the Queen printed on it, the Queen who went about on a bicycle just like her subjects. It was Pete who wrote, telling him own visits to the garage there, the building of a new dike. He did not mention Mina anywhere in his letter. It was as if she had never existed. He doesn't want to make me feel unhappy, that wife said Porphyros to himself. But he only makes it worse. Then he flung himself into his work again with all his usual ardor, whistling and singing with all his might, forcing himself to enjoy life. You know, said the customers at the filling station to Owen Barbadou, your young garage hand is as good as a tonic. It's a pleasure to see his bright face. 2 days after he had received Pete's letter, Porphyros was cleaning out the garage, conscientiously and meticulously, as he had learned to do it at Croonan, when the mailman, jumping from his noisy motorcycle, called out to him, Morning, Porphyros. Here's another letter from Holland. From Holland. He snatched the letter from the mailman. It was certainly stamped with a Dutch stamp, but Pete had not written the address. Porphyros felt the envelope, turned it over, and, as soon as the mailman had gone, went and hid behind an oil drum at the far end of the garage. His hands were shaking. He dared impotently open the envelope. He saw that it was addressed in Mrs. Van Hoolen's handwriting. What had happened back there? His legs gave way beneath him, and he perched on a jack, sitting the envelope with trembling fingers. My dear Porphyros, Mina is alive. She is well and alive. We have just received the news through the Norwegian consulate at Amsterdam. We know nothing, except that they instead sending her back to Holland, since they believe you are still here. But we thought that, now you are properly established, it would be better if she came straight to join you, if that is possible, and we know that is what you would wish. My husband has just sent a wire to the consulate, explaining the situation and send us a telegram to let us know that you accept this plan. My dear Porphyros, we can guess just how happy this will make you, and you can imagine how delighted we are here, all of us. I'm afraid this is all we can tell you today. We don't know why Mina is in Norway, or why we've had to wait all these long months for news. But she is alive, and she is well. Dear Porphyros, we share your happiness, and we all send you out love. Maria Van Hoolen. Porphyros read it twice, 3 times. His eyes filled with tears and he could no longer see the written lines. Mina was alive. Mina would be coming to join him. Could it be anything but a dream? His eyes were glued to the letter. He could not tear them away. Then, even paler than he had been the night he had been found numb with cold at the door of the cafe, he got up and streaked through the garage like a flash of lightning, knocking over all the oil drums he had just built into a neat pyramid. He pushed open the door of the cafe, yelling Mina is alive, and burst into the kitchen, where the shock of his whirlwind entrance caused Madame Barbadou to drop the saucepan she was holding. He shouted again, she's alive! She's alive! And collapsed in floods of tears on the tall bread bin.